We'll get started here. I'm Stephen Ray, representing
Department of Public Safety. We will begin with introductions. We'll start down here at the end and move around now to the audience.
Tom Berger, representing the Iowa Firefighters Association.
Mike Bryant, representing Iowa Professional Firefighters.
Blake DeRucci, Iowa Homeland Security Emergency Management, 911 Program Manager.
Bob Seibert, representing the Iowa Emergency Managers Association.
Rob Rotter, representing the Iowa State Sheriffs and Deputies Association.
Sally Hall, representing Iowa APCO.
Rob Coppert, representing the Iowa chapter of the North America Emergency Number Association. Nina?
Wow. Rob Denner, representing the Iowa EMS Association.
George Griffith, representing the Iowa Police Officers Association.
Dave Kaz, representing PCS Providers.
Jack D'Angelo, Sully Telephone, representing small telcos.
Dan Halterman, Frontier Communications, representing large telcos.
Okay, we'll start out here in the audience.
Marcia Slifer, Powell Police Department, the Administrative Services Manager.
We'll just go down this way.
Iowa County Emergency Management. Brett Brooks, West Safety Services. Brian Mabel, West Count. Bob Corey, Contact. County Sheriff's Office. Vernon Pine, Dallas County Sheriff's Office. Castle and Warren County 911.
Start up here over on this side.
Alice Holquisner with Legislative Services Agency.
Roush, Story County E911. Dina McKenna, Office.
Tim Malott, Cedar County Emergency Management 911, and I believe one of the only centers running 75% solar energy.
Landon Oscar, Motorola. Tim Aaron, Motorola. Eric Jones, Des Moines Police. Buffington, Winnebago, Hancock.
Contact.
All right, and I think we had Sheriff Kruger come in. There he is. Welcome. Okay. Looking for an approval of the August 11th minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of today's agenda. Okay, we have motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, State of Iowa Administrator reports. Blake.
Right. I have no handouts today, so no shuffling of papers, nothing to look over while I'm talking. So, but I do have a number of things to mention and bring up. There's been quite a bit of discussion on the passing of administrative rules. That is scheduled still on the 13th, so next week. Primarily, it's scheduled at 11:40. But really that means it could go off anywhere between 11 and 12, and that's at the state capitol at room 116. So if anyone is interested in attending that, it's an open meeting or open hearing. So again, the 13th, anywhere from 11 to 12, room 116 at the state capitol. Save the date went out from our office on the consolidation workshops that we were tasked with holding as part of the legislation last session. Those will be held September 27th in Sioux City, September 29th in Cedar Rapids. There will be two sessions, a morning and an afternoon, on October 7th at Joint Forces Headquarters at the State EOC. The afternoon session on the 7th is primarily targeted towards vendors, telcos, CPE vendors, any company that has anything to do with 911. We're kind of having a targeted session that afternoon. Of course, all of these are open meetings to anyone, so by all means, feel free to come to any of the sessions, but just kind of trying to target audience groups. And then kind of a catch-all, the morning of October 24th at the Ramada Tropics. That's kind of in conjunction with Iowa APCO, NENA, and everything else that's going on there. Speaking of the 24th, another save the date and registration link went out from our office for the afternoon of the 24th, again at the Ramada Tropics. That's the 911 program update, training that we've historically kind of held in conjunction with the fall Iowa APCO-NENA conference. An agenda is still forthcoming. Part of the registration process is if there's any topics you want me to talk about. It's kind of a fluid agenda. So make sure if there's anything specific you want to have discussed that you put that in that little registration form. Any questions on any of those meeting dates or upcoming schedules? Okay. We talked a little bit, well, talked a lot about some of the text to 911 connectivity challenges between the Comtech network and the various CPE vendors. Talked about in the past how we were going to pay for the 13 secondary ESINet sites, the theory being that we caused those sites to be different by introducing the secondary ESINet site. We've had a little bit of pushback on that, continue to have ongoing discussions on what's the right way to pay for that or to make it right. We have decided that we will pay for that service statewide. That was a gasp, Sally. So what we have done is gone out for RFB, request for bid, through Department of Administrative Services. That's actually on their website right now, so I can't really talk too much about it. But basically, the idea being that it's not the Wild West with vendors poaching clients or customers. Basically, we want to see what the price is going to be for the various CPE vendors with their customers. Site by site, total at the bottom. We'll agree to pay, or we'll enter a negotiation. But I can't say too much about it since that is out there right now. It's set to close, I believe, September 21st. So really not too much of a delay. Another thing that has been kind of brought up in a lot of the regional PSAP meetings that I want to bring up here, there was a decision from the Office of Management and Budget at the federal level to not reclassify dispatchers into a different personnel class, salary class. There's been a lot of discussion amongst NASNA, NENA, APCO about what can be done about that. Just so everyone is aware, NASNA is basically the organization of my counterparts in the 50 states. We have written an appeal paper to the Office of Management and Budget to try to get them to reconsider that. If anyone's interested in reading that, or if you want to use it for your own purposes, kind of as a template, or if you're planning on doing anything as one of your other professional organizations or your agency, by all means, let me know and I can get that to you. Also, let's see. Sean, do you want to come out here for a second? Also brought up in one of the regional PSAP meetings, Sean, who you know through FirstNet and the ISICS board, has done a lot of audiovisual stuff. So one of the things that we want to start doing or look at doing is promoting 911 a little bit. We have a budget the last couple of years that the legislature has given us for public education. I know it'll probably get brought up a little bit later. We've looked into coordinating with the chief information officer with the state to have a 911 website. And Sean is putting together some videos for the ISICS board, and he brought up that he could also do that for 911. Kind of to also, help paint the picture of all the things that telecommunicators do in your center, but also just, when text becomes more prevalent, to be able to have those short, maybe 2-minute videos available online, available on YouTube, and able to be embedded in websites and shared on Facebook or what have you. So is there anything else you might want to mention about that, Sean?
I did print out for the board, let me grab it quick, kind of samples of the website. Our new website is getting ready to roll out, and I should be staying over there. There's only one, something like that. I'll just hand these out to the board, and you should just take one of the packets. So I know Rob and Rob have been working on the website. And so this website, we just kind of redid. This is our third iteration for the ISICS board website. And this one is important. The reason why I wanted to talk about this quickly is it's built specifically for boards and councils. So uploading meeting minutes, making sure that your agendas are posted, taking care of policy stuff, members, all that stuff is built into this. And it's built so that a non-IT person can do it. It's built as simple as I've seen the state build anything so far. So on the back end, you know, depending on whoever in your council does take over the website, it's built in a way that it's more or less drag and drop, or, you know, just click on add content. I'm not saying it won't require a little training, but it's a very easy solution depending on, you know, how you want to go with this. And since it's already, for the most part, almost all built, it should be an easy transition depending on what template your council decides to go with. And thank you for talking about the video. We will be posting the ComL video probably this week. We just did the last revision, and then we'll be doing a ComT as well. So that's pretty much all I had, unless anyone has any questions or anything. All right, I'll run back to my booth.
All right,
Thanks, Sean. And then the final thing I have, I passed out the financials last month, but just to update everyone, I think everyone's aware that there was another $4.3 million that was allocated to public safety for the build out of the lease payments of this statewide LMR. That allocation has been moved over to DPS. So I think some of that I had already shown in those financials, but just so you know, that 4.3 has come out. Pending any questions, that's my report. Yeah.
Okay.
Blake, has there been any update or movement on the motion from last month's meeting about dispersing the existing funds from the operating surplus to each PSAP?
We're not legally able to do that. If you would like a formal letter, I'm sure we can do that.
I'm wondering if the board or the council shouldn't have something on record for that. We made that recommendation to the program manager that this would be a return communication.
Could you write a letter? I'm assuming that was probably through your department's attorney. Yeah, okay.
No problem.
Thanks.
Yep. Any other questions?
I have one question for Blake. I did have a question from another comm center director regarding the consolidation grants and the reimbursement, or how the payments were going to be made, whether or not they had if, for instance, if they have a $500,000 project, of course they'd be eligible for $200,000 of that. If they have to outlay the entire $500,000 and then get reimbursed the $200,000, or if they just have to outlay the $300,000 and invoice send an invoice to the state to pay the other $200,000 directly. How is that going to work?
So we are able to only reimburse county service boards. We need to basically see the invoice that shows that we're paying half. You know, so if there is a project that says it's $500,000, well, we can only pay $200,000. So, you know, if your invoices show $400,000, we're still going to pay the $200,000. So, you know, we basically need to see that complete invoice. We don't. We'll pay our half based on what is presented to us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question as well for Mike Bryant. So as approximately 3.4 million, assuming today's approvals, with $1 million remaining, first come, first served basis, I guess we'll use simple math. If 10 show up tomorrow morning, what are you going to do?
Yep, thank you for bringing that up. I actually meant to talk about that too. And I put it out to the board in an email when it's part of this month's review process, but you're right. I think 3.1 or 3.4 is the number that will be approved up to if all of these pass today, leaving about 1.1, somewhere in there. We have an internal QA, QC process that we go through when we get an application. Once a grant comes in and it passes through that, so it's filled out correctly and accurately, that's when it will be put in the pile for approval. So that means if somebody sends an application and it's totally messed up, it's totally wrong, that doesn't get put in the pile yet. So you can't just, hurry up and try to slide an application in. It has to be, done correctly from our point of view to get stuck in the pile for approval for next month. Once we cross that 1.1 threshold or whatever is left, as we continue to receive applications throughout the month, we'll make sure to let the county or PSAP know, you're in a separate stack right now. If something falls through, if something gets not approved, you're in a separate stack. We'll pull from the top of that next pile. I took a number of phone calls or emails with the, first come, first serve. And, again, my message has kind of been, well, it's always been that way. It's always subject to funds available, and it's always done, based on the order that we get them, approved by us. With the 4.4, I think it puts a little bit more urgency onto it. And, if you want to say it first come, first serve, that it always has been. Any questions on that?
Well, I'll do the what if. So, okay, I guess I'm on. So, assuming we don't get any legislative changes, meaning it's kind of still as is for next year, and obviously, folks picked up on the apply early, apply often from last month. So let's just take another theory. What happens when July next year you get 40 applications? Assuming we're on the same basis that we are right now, meaning in month one, you get more applications. I'm saying they all come on July 1 to your office. I mean, I know that it's a hypothetical what if, but kind of like, and I'm not trying to beat up on you, but what if you get 6 in the mail today when you're back there? You don't have money for 6 today. Is it how you pick them up off the pile? I mean, that's potentially going to happen on any given day.
So a couple things. We rarely get applications in the mail, and yes, it's possible. Most of them are via email.
Okay.
Not saying it's not possible,
Right.
but
So they're date.
right. And then with your next one on if everything stays the same, if there's still another cap, whatever that dollar amount is, and we get more applications than we can. One of the things that we talked about during the special session that kind of stuck with me. And it was almost too late to change this go around because we were kind of midstream. I kind of like the competitive grant perspective. That way, if we do get those, as a council, we are able to choose which ones meet the criteria laid out before us the best. Like I said, I think it was a little bit hard to do that midstream since we were kind of already in that grant cycle for this fiscal year. But it's something, there's nothing set in stone that says we can't do that. So it's something that kind of stuck in my mind to kind of prevent this chaos in the future should there be more chaos next year.
Mike, has the criteria been established? Last month, you said you didn't have it, you put it on the board to establish what the criteria is for consolidation.
A lot of that criteria was written legislatively. I'd say the nuance of what was being applied for was established by what was approved.
Last month's meeting, it wasn't defined for consolidation.
Can you come up here and address, please?
Sure. We got makeup again. Last month, we were here and the board didn't approve any of those grants.
Oh, they approved all of them.
Well, initially.
Okay.
And we talked about that it wasn't defined, consolidation, what that means. And the governor didn't, I think he put it on your board, or you, or your group, and it wasn't, and you asked this board to do it. I'm just wondering, has it been defined?
Again,
And I
I
see a lot of the money being approved, and it looks like there's 10 more today that will be approved, and has it been defined? And at the end of the month, we're gonna start discussing what consolidation really is.
Again, I think by the precedence that was set with the approval, that gives us the guidelines for what is going to be considered or what isn't going to be considered. And what you're hitting on is also correct, and it was discussed, that yes, we're tasked with studying consolidation with a report due to the legislature in January, yet we also have to approve consolidation grants. So you're right, the cart is a little bit before the horse, but at the same time, we have grants to approve. So I'm not sure if that, I know that doesn't answer your question, but.
No,
Well, a final draft of the administrative rules has been provided to all the council members. That's what's going to be submitted. And it pretty much falls in line with what's already been approved. Fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's certainly nothing outside of the legislation. There's some nuance there, and we talked about it last month with, it has to include a PSAP. Well, what's a PSAP? But radios are listed amongst the items that are consolidatable.
Right.
And that's what the vast majority of the applications have been.
Okay.
And I'm glad you said the radios are, because that's a concern of mine, because my understanding is when there was consolidation of PSAPs, it had to be a physical or a virtue consolidation where one would no longer exist under consolidations. But now I understand we can go out and purchase like a multi-band radios for all our emergency responders and prep to get on the LMR?
Within the legislation, it was both physical and virtual.
Okay, so I can put in a grant to purchase $1 million, and I understand that you only pay 200,000 of multi-band radios to put in every one of my emergency vehicles, so they would be in preparation to go on the LMR if they choose to.
Yes, with the exception of, I believe the radios have to meet the minimum
700
of what
DHF.
Essex Boards has established.
Okay.
Yes.
That works, thank you.
And the reason I asked the questions of Blake was not to put Blake on the spot, but in, I guess, preparation for the upcoming legislative session and potential language discussions with the legislators, language, I guess I'll refer to it as tweaking of 34, where some of the pieces don't exactly fit into the puzzle, and to have a cleaner, better, hopefully cleaner, better, clearer direction next year. So it isn't, but it's kind of one of them, I guess I'll call it branches in the tree that need to be included in discussions. And I'll talk more about that when we maybe get to the legislative part for the upcoming, and hopefully be more proactive than reactive, and not be at the end of the session. So thank you.
Any other comments for Blake's report? Okay, PSAP consolidation grant applications. So everybody's received those via email from Blake. Are there any on there that any council members would like to have pulled for any type of conflict or anything?
Yes. Chair,
Yeah.
Iowa counties and Lane counties.
Okay, all right,
Shelby counties.
okay.
I would need Dubuque County pulled.
Okay, so we got Lynn, we got Shelby, we got Iowa. Dubuque. Any others? Okay, then we'll vote on those separately. All the other ones, so I'd entertain a motion for approval of them.
I'd so move.
Okay, we have motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Dubuque.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I would abstain.
Lynn County.
Motion to approve?
Second. Second, okay. Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Iowa.
Who seconded that motion? I'm sorry. Okay, Tom. Okay. From the Lynn County one, yes.
Okay. And then we have the Iowa County. Okay. Dave Cow, second. Dan. Okay, we have motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That's the four, right?
Shelby.
Oh, Shelby. Last but not least, Shelby.
I so move.
Dan.
Okay, motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Shelby abstains.
Okay, thank you. Takes care of that. Technical advisory, any comments from any of our technical partners? Any updates or information? Anybody from the audience? Okay. Interoperability. I don't see Craig. He's not with us. I didn't have it on here, but Mike, you brought it up. Anybody want to comment on anything legislatively? Hey, Bob?
Yeah, we've kind of talked from time to time since the last session about expanding the council membership and including a GIS person on our council. And if that would be an initiative that the council would like to move forward with, I think we need to make our partners aware of that and work to get that into the legislation.
That's a good idea.
Would we?
Probably would be good to have the council have an approval to go ahead and make that an initiative that our legislative liaisons would like to take to the Hill. So,
If you'd like that as a motion, I would make that motion.
okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything else?
About the only other thing is the initiatives of the council, basically, we don't have a lobbyist. So we depend on our associations to move our agendas forward if we have a particular agenda. And I guess we should, as a council, if there is an initiative we want to see moved forward, we need to make that known. And I would use the consolidation grants as an example. The $8.4 million unobligated carryover fund that's just sitting there. If we as a council want to see changes in those areas, we should probably maybe do a white paper or something that we can show our associations we're in favor of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I would add in on that, because I do believe in being proactive rather than reactive to the session. I've heard at last month's meeting, both by John Benson and Blake, some similarities on and with our motion, you know, the 8.4 million and some of their, looking into the future. My 20-some years on the council, I won't say it's the only time, but it's, I think, the only time where I've actually heard the Homeland Security Department actually kind of come out with discussions similar to what we want. So I think it would be, not that they're against, but a lot of times they can't say anything, is I guess what I'm trying to say. They can't take a position. And I think it would be a wasted opportunity to not work with them. We've had the discussions about what did the legislators mean, their intent. We've had discussions in different parts with the governor's office. It seems to me that this screams for, I don't know whether you want to call it a ad hoc committee, a panel, a group, to be working on this, to try to get something. We've seen what happens when we try to do legislation at the last minute at the end of the session. I think every effort should be made to try to do as much as we can before the session starts, like today. It's September. It's only 3 months away. You know, the session's gonna, or 4 months, the session's gonna be started. That we need to be working on, you know, if nothing else, I guess what I always come back to is figure out what the issues are, what the problems are, what we can agree on, and if we can't agree, at least then we know what we disagree on. And doesn't mean that we all have to do and be in, you know, the same thing, but where there's potential here to try to fix something that the pieces of the puzzle to me don't fit together in 34A because we chopped it up several different times. And a few years ago, I think we kind of got it cleaned up and cleaner. And now I think there's pieces of the puzzle that just really don't fit to make the picture clear. And I know it's not a, you know, it's a fantasy world to think that the language could be so clear we don't need administrative rules. But from the world of labor where I negotiate contracts, I still find myself writing language, and by golly, how did I not see this was going to be confusing? I mean, it should be so simple that our mothers could read the language and figure it out. And it's clear to us because we're in it, but it should be clear to somebody who's outside of it what it's trying to say. And I've heard the sheriff say how they have to interpret, you know, legislation and it's frustrating. So anyway, with that said, I think there's an opportunity to hopefully be better off next year in come July 1st at the end of the session than we ended up this year. That's all. I'm not trying to fault anybody. I'm just thinking that we should be a part of it if we can. But if, you know, again, that's just a suggestion. So if the chair or the group wants to discuss it, I think it's a worthy. I mean, what I see kind of happening, as I've kind of looked since last meeting and the grant applications, and obviously folks picked up on the apply early, but we're gonna run out, and it looks like a lot of people are using this process to help get ready for the LMR. And my world, I like to use analogies, but what I see happening on this first come first serve basis, and if there's not some, I'm not saying this is the way to go, but if there's not something there that says, well, if you got it this year, somebody who didn't get it gets a priority for next year. There's goods and bads with that for sharing the money, but the bad is if you equate it to an automobile, we're going to have people with a frame with 4 tires and people with a frame with engines and people with a frame with a body, but nobody's going to ever get the whole automobile put together to drive down the road. I mean, I think, you know, in the piecemeal world, you know, we're better off with some of those things than without them. But I don't know that anybody's going to get enough out of this, the way it's set up, with the virtual, to get all the parts and pieces that they need to drive the car down the road. So there's some potential pitfalls with the first come first serve basis. And I'm not saying that we don't stick with it or we can come up with something better, but that's kind of how one of the ways I kind of see that it may not be the best the way we're going about it, but I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to look into the crystal ball and avoid problems. So with that, I'll shut up.
I just have one thing to add. I agree with everything that you said. When we talk about the legislation and how we would approach that through white papers or whatever, I think it's something we really need to put on the front burner because our associations, I'm sure my association is very much like yours, where we have a process of vetting those agendas and putting them to our boards, you know, back home or wherever. And so we really can't wait around. I know, like, for the Sheriff's Association, we're looking at, you know, doing stuff like that in the winter schools and stuff. And if we don't have that formulated by then, a lot of that becomes too late. So I don't think it's a can we can kick down the road too long. If we want to start working on legislative ideas, I think we need to get on that.
One thing that we did in the contract with L.R. Kimball is they have a legislative specialist as well. And I've already started funneling her some of the ideas I've had just on modernizing the code section. The idea being when the consolidation workshops are done, we basically have a new code section, a replacement or all of our ideas that incorporate what we want to do as a group, as a state, as much as we can kind of get on the same page, and be able to produce that come the legislative session. Now, we might differ in some ideas, and by all means, if you have, what we produce isn't what the council or what your agencies want, we can still have, kind of two sets that we're working off on. But I'd be more than willing to incorporate and work with the council or any of you on what that final document kind of looks like from L.R. Kimball to kind of help us move that code section forward.
Okay. Great. Clearly, it's your individual organizations that carry a lot of the weight when it comes to these legislative initiatives that we try and put out there for the 911 community. In the essence of time, and that we are getting close to the first of the year, it is going by quickly. I'm not sure that I heard right, but Bob and Mike, were you willing to put a little stuff to paper and maybe get it back to us by the next meeting? Sure. And at least we could get that discussed here of what's a priority and then get it to Blake so that he can match that up with what L.R. Kimball's doing. And get the ball rolling on this. Okay. Anything else on that topic? Questions?
Well, I think that in an answer to Greg Brooks's question regarding the definition of consolidation, the legislature threw us a curveball, a curveball and a fastball at the same time. And it really hurt because I saw a lot of people's opinions differing on this console, and this console has been and always has been fairly cohesive. So that tells me it's a topic that while this console may have some thoughts, and the individual members may have some thoughts, and the associations may have some thoughts, I think that it is technically up to the legislature to decide what consolidation is. You don't throw out the word and then say, hey, let somebody else define this word. I don't want to say I didn't appreciate what the legislature did last year, but quite frankly, I don't. I think it was two things. It was irresponsible to assign $4.4 million to a grant project that we don't even have any idea of what the problem is until we get that L.R. Kimball report, until we see what the consolidation PSAP study looks like. How can we make a fair assessment of what consolidation actually is until we see what the problems are? And, I would like to bounce this back to the legislature. That's why I said last month, maybe we need to consult with Representative Worthen or Senator Danielson to see exactly what they meant when they said consolidation, because it wasn't clearly defined in the Iowa Code and as it moves into the administrative rules section either. And, we can interpret what they think, but I don't understand or don't want to put I guess I don't want to think or interpret what a senator is thinking or a representative is thinking, because I have no idea what's in their mind. They don't know what's in my mind. I see consolidation as something. Rob Dennert sees consolidation as something else. Greg Brooks, you see it as something else. Dave Ness, you see it as something else. We all see it as different. And when you get 15 people on a council up here trying to determine what it is, representing 15 different organizations, then you multiply that by 15 times 100 people in those organizations, and we're never going to get a definition. So I think we need to request the legislature to firmly identify what consolidation is and what is and is not eligible expenses for consolidation grants in the future. And take it off this board. We aren't the ones that are spending the 4.4 million, the legislature is. They should be the ones that are telling us what we can and can't spend it on. My thoughts.
I'm concerned about those thoughts because it seems as though you're placing a lot of confidence in the legislature's ability to determine how funds should be used at the local level for the jobs that we do.
And I think firmly understand that.
I think that's what we need to do as the council. Exactly what we hear almost every month, that we need to have this legislative agenda, and we do. We need to develop these position statements, and I think they need to look to us. We need to drive this bus, not sit back wait for the legislature to hand down on high how we should be doing our business. We should be telling them what we need. Am I right?
It's a good point. I agree with you.
But it's the opposite, I think, of what you said, that you're asking the legislature to tell us what consolidation is. I think we should be telling the legislature what consolidation is.
Well, we can give them our opinion of what it is, but I think it's a balance of both, really. It really is. They're the purse holders.
I have a question for everybody in the room. How many people in this room have had their legislator into their PSAP? There's a huge problem. There's the answer to your problem right there. Why? I preach to you every month. You need to be going to their things, learn them. They need to know you on a first name basis, and yet not one of the people on this council have had their legislator into their PSAP. It's a huge, okay. But it's a huge problem. They don't know what you do. They don't know what you do. Why? Why are you so afraid of them? They work for you. You elect them. You know, I mean, in the fire service, we have a deal called HOT, hands-on training, where we have council people, mayors, legislators get into fire gear and go into fire simulators. It's probably one of the best things my international ever came up with. We make it pretty darn hot in there for them, but it's still safe. So, you know, again, they're not going to understand what you do and what you need until they're there. Sorry, it's our own fault.
Can I echo those remarks for him?
Yep, up here, yep.
I will. I want to echo what he just said, because I have had my legislators in my PSAPs explaining why I moved P25, why I moved forward with solar energy, why I moved forward with the 800 bridge to VHF, why I've moved forward with putting a fire suppression system. And not one of them went against it when they seen why. They pushed us forward to do that. And that's why we got everything when we asked the first try. We didn't have to go back and explain why we were doing things. They were pushing us to do it. I agree with them 100%. It'll help us 100%.
Any other comments?
Another thing just on the legislative part before we move on. I know Stephen and I have talked, and I've talked with John Benson as well. You know, at the federal level, they have a 911 goes to Washington. I think replicating that here would be a good idea as well. You know, yes, it's in the middle of the session. Things can already be in motion at that point. But I think that would help if we had a 911 goes to the Capitol or something like that locally.
Well, the consolidation will be brought up again at the next session, I'll guarantee you. It will be, and And I think part of it is because we know that there's not a big push out there for agencies to close down PSAPs, although I think there are some legislators that believe that was the intended purpose, was to reduce the number of PSAPs, but along the way, it ended up becoming that, well, if we consolidate virtually, those things will be accepted. So there's two different thought processes going on, and they all have to merge at some point if it's gonna work the way people want it to. I don't know what the answer is on that. A lot of that, as far as the consolidation point, Homeland Security is discharged with that duty to expend those funds, so a lot of that's gonna have to come from your agency to ask for those clarifications that your director can make. So, okay, anything else? All right, we're gonna move on here to the October council meeting discussion. In the past, we have held the 911 council in conjunction with the APCO-NENA timeframe, and it was brought up again. I don't know if there's any interest in us trying to have it during that time period, or go ahead. Our normal meeting would be on the 13th of October. If we waited another 11 days, we'd have it again, then another meeting 2 weeks later on the 10th of November. So just throwing it out there for discussion. I also understand that for APCO and NENA people, sometimes it's difficult trying to arrange a meeting in what they've got planned for the day too, so. Rob, you have any-
Well, with APCO-NENA being on the 24th, 25th, 26th of October, I don't see any reason to move the council meeting. I think the Essex it probably wouldn't be moving. They haven't moved in the past. So I think we just stay at the same date and time and go
Okay.
for it.
All right. Other,
Actually, I think that's the best idea. If we have our legislative initiatives approved early in October, we can bring those to that conference and move them forward.
One thing I'll point out, and I'm not sure it makes a difference to any of the council members, that is the same week, and our Homeland Security Conference is going on during that week. A lot of the emergency managers go to that, but just something to consider.
sure, yeah. Okay, well. Sounds like we're gonna stay on the 13th of October then. Okay, that's what it'll be then, 13th of October. We'll continue as is. Unfinished business. You were all given bylaws updates from Sally. You all had the opportunity to take a look at those. I think there was one item, Sally, that you were.
It was section
7? Okay.
Yeah, that was the only comment that I had received, whether we actually needed that section.
Anybody have a thought on that? Do you have a copy, Sally, on hand? Okay. You looking for a copy? We don't have a copy here.
I knew I had one in here.
Dan's got
There it
one.
is, right?
Oh, okay, there it is.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Here you go, sir.
All right, section 7, under Article 7. Member attendance by means of electronic device. A council member may attend a council meeting by electronic means and shall be allowed to participate in the discussion of matters brought before the council.
Mike.
It doesn't work. That was the only comment that I had received, whether we truly needed that. Because throughout the other portions of the bylaws, it's talking about, the council attending, electronically, and that there had to be a quorum, physically present. So, just your thoughts.
What exactly was the comment said?
Whether it was really truly needed or not.
Okay.
Whether it was kind of redundant.
Basically, do you want it removed or kept in?
For voting, to be counted as a quorum. And then also for voting purposes, they have to be physically present to do that.
Section 7 simply indicating that a council member could call in and partake in the discussion, however, they would not be able to vote.
It basically states it in reverse as the
Yeah.
way it clarifies it in a different section of the bylaws was my thoughts.
I would, if you want to, I'll make a motion to strike section 7 of the amendment, where it says member attendance by means of electronic device. A council member may attend a council meeting by electronic means and shall be allowed to participate in the discussion matters brought before the council. I make a motion to strike that and keep section 6 as is. So I think it's pretty much a given that if you're not here, you can at least listen in. But I think that in order to vote, you must be present. That is a motion, sir.
Okay, a motion and second on striking section 7. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, then with that, we want to entertain a motion then to accept the updated bylaws.
I so move.
And I'll second that.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That is passed. Travel requests. I don't.
Mike.
Travel requests. Any that I'm not aware of?
I don't have a request, but I will be making a report. I thought this meeting was going to go longer, so I'll make a report next month, a brief report, and provide a written report regarding APCO 2016, which was in Orlando, and pretty good conference. A lot of good information.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we usually approve APCO Nina's conference in Iowa for any of the council members that wish to attend.
Absolutely.
Add in the minutes, I suppose, to do that. Certainly.
Yep. Okay. Motion and second on approving any council member to attend APCO Nina. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Any business from the floor? Items to bring before the council. Okay. Any last words from council members? Okay, with that, again, our next meeting will be held at this location on October 13th at 9 a.m. and we shall be adjourned.